Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight at the Middleborough Open Space and Recreation Public Meeting. My name is Sarah Brown, and I'm Senior Comprehensive Planner at SRPEDD. I am here tonight with Helen Sienkiewicz, our Director of Environmental Programming, Bill Napolitano, our Director of Rivers, Trails, and Watershed Coordinator, Danica Belknap, our Senior Environmental Planner, and Benjamin Myers, a Comprehensive Planner. We are also joined tonight by your Conservation Agent, Patricia Cassidy. This meeting is being recorded and we will add it to our Open Space and Recreation website, as well as the Middleborough Cable Access channel afterwards. I'm going to turn it over to Tricia to say a few words.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate people being involved in this public process. It's very important that we get public input through the Open Space and Recreation Plan update. So if you don't know, the Open Space and Recreation Plan is something that Middleborough has been involved with for decades. Used to be every 5 years you would update the plan. Now it's every 7 years. So we're coming to that point this year where we need another update. The last one was in 2015. And the reason why it's so important is that I believe it's a living document and it helps the town, many different departments, look at what our needs are in the town as far as open space areas, meaning, places that you would have trails, places that you'd have, for wildlife, could be forest, could be fields, different kinds of habitats. And, what our needs are for recreation as far as, playgrounds, ball fields, just, places for families to do things and just the community in general to have, a good time. We're very lucky we have the town pool and we do have a park and recreation department that have been involved in past plans and are going to be involved in this plan as well. So with that being said, this plan just needs some, some tweaks, some little updates because we just went through a 2020 census. We're hoping to get that information sometime this year. And we also, we have to do some inspections again for Americans with Disabilities Act compliance. And hopefully, with those inspections, and if we find some deficiencies, we can apply for grant funding to upgrade those facilities. And, looking at priority open space, what are the places we would like to protect in the future? And, with that, with coming up with actions and goals, we can pinpoint those areas for the next 7 years, that places we'd like to apply for grant funding to protect. So mostly those areas are, near existing protected lands, near rivers, other bodies of water, areas that are protected for different wildlife species and maybe rare plants. So, we'll get more into this process tonight. I think Sarah is going to touch on some of these things. And with this meeting tonight, we would like some input from all of you, things that we may not know about the town of Middleborough, maybe some of the history that we don't have in there, or, certain historical buildings that we'd like to mention, or places. So with that, I will open it back up to Sarah and the other panelists so we can get some input. And I guess we're going to be asking you to type in the chat if you have any questions or comments, and then we can share that with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. As Tricia said, before we begin, I'm going to go over a few of the buttons that appear on your screen. On the left-hand side is the chat function. Use this button if you have any questions or comments relating to Zoom. Anything you put in this chat will come directly to us, members at SRPEDD, and then we can assist you if you have any technical difficulties. In this chat, we also posted some links to our website, to our interactive map that we'll be doing later on tonight, and to the public survey. The Q&A button is where you can put any comments you have or questions you have related to this open space plan. We will also be using this button later on tonight to gather your input on where locations are you would like to see open space and other comments you'd like to add to our interactive map. If you need closed captioning, there is a CC button on the bottom of your screen, and you can click on that and closed captionings will appear at the bottom of your screen. As Tricia said, in the fall of last year, the town of Middleborough started updating its 2015 Open Space and Recreation Plan, also commonly known as the OSRP. This is a 7-year document showing the vision and action agenda for improving open spaces and recreational activities in town. By updating its plan, Middleborough will be more prepared to proactively dictate and pursue the future of its open space and recreational activities. This process is overseen by a working group and relies on public input. The OSRP describes Middleborough's open space and recreational resources by collecting and translating a variety of data into a comprehensive picture of the town's natural resources. It creates a forum for residents to share concerns about the current open space and recreation lands in Middleborough and suggest ideas to make these community resources better. The OSRP combines baseline data and input from local community into a blueprint for taking action that will protect and manage the community's resources and improve open space and recreation in town. Finally, having a completed OSRP makes communities eligible to apply for grants to implement the plan and get grants from the Division of Conservation Services. Here is a list of example action items that can go into an OSRP. You have priorities for addressing natural resources and conservation goals, new land acquisition for parkland and preservation purposes, improvements to existing recreation and open space facilities, strategies for addressing maintenance issues, priorities for historical and cultural preservation, overcoming barriers to addressing and using these community resources. Some important accomplishments from the last plan: the protection of 20 acres of a Jmar turkey property, the protection of 4 parcels at Wolowski Park at the Taunton River and Perche Brook, added signage for the Oliver Mill to be seen from Route 44, started educational programming at Soul Homestead in the public schools, certified additional vernal pools at Oliver Estates and other townland, and developed forest management plans for Weston Forest, Oliver Estate, and the town forest. This graph shows the amount of open space acreage there are based on primary purpose of land. As you can see, the majority of the open space land in town is used for conservation. This makes up 82% of the 9,300 acres. Second largest is used for conservation and recreation, with the third being water supply protection. Of the 9,300 acres in Middleborough that are considered open space and recreation, 94% is considered protected in perpetuity. Later on, I'll show you on a map where the protected lands are. Along with all the open space action items and goals, there is a section on demographics. This table shows the demographic data from the 2010 census and from the 2015 to 2019 American Community Survey, which is an estimate. The full 2020 census has not been released yet, but they have released total populations for cities and towns And in 2020, Middleborough had a total population of 24,245 people. With the decreasing number in population under 18 years old and an increasing population of over 65, the senior populations will require different amenities than younger populations, such as gentle walking trails, bike paths, and passive recreation areas, such as parks and picnicking grounds. Younger populations require different amenities, such as swimming areas, skate parks, and off-road bike trails. As the senior population in Middleborough will likely increase in the coming years, planning in advance for this shift will prepare the town to respond to their needs. Just as the town must prepare for demographic changes in the coming years, so too must it be ready for changes in the physical environment that will be caused by climate change. There are two major climate impacts that the town can expect to see: precipitation and temperature changes. We can project how the Taunton watershed and Buzzards Bay watershed, where Middleborough is located, will be impacted by climate change by using various measures of carbon emissions. Based on a high carbon emission scenario, by 2050, Middleborough can expect to see an additional of 14 to 53 days above 90°F, about 2.56 additional inches of rain annually, nearly 3 additional days of extreme rainfall event per year, and an average of 2 additional consecutive dry days in the summer and the fall. Middleborough and the world are currently on a high emissions scenario, meaning that these impacts are more likely to happen. Open space planning can be a critical tool in climate change adaptation and mitigation. Different types of open space and recreational lands present their own unique benefits and challenges when it comes to addressing climate change. Open spaces along rivers and ponds will have to contend with more flooding and erosion. Recreational lands activities in the summertime will have to deal with more extreme heat and precipitation, which can particularly impact senior and young children. However, open space can also help us address the impacts of climate change. Open spaces that are designed to flood and to store water, such as rain gardens and natural floodplains, can help protect our communities from street level flooding. Forests can help provide a cooling effect beneficial for animals and vulnerable populations. At the end of this process, Middleborough residents will ideally be able to use the OSRP to make robust decisions about the future of open space and preservation and recreational activities in the town. The open space and recreation plan has 10 sections and a reference section at the end. All of the public feedback that we get from this meeting, from our survey, and from the map will go in section 10 for public comments. Before we begin tonight's activity, I want to go over a few links that we have put in the chat. I will be demonstrating the interactive map activity in a minute, but I wanted to let everybody know that starting next week, there will be a poster-sized map with the same sticker categories we will be using tonight in the town hall annex, and in the public library. Feel free to go there and participate if you don't want to participate online. I'm going to switch over to our website. All right, so this is our Middleborough Open Space and Recreational Planning website. Ben has put the link in the chat. It's just SRPEDD.org/Middleborough-OSRP. On this website, you can scroll down and there's a blurb about why plan for open space and recreation. We have news and announcements. So for tonight, we have our meeting information. And then if you scroll down, you can find ways to participate. We have our survey link, And then we have our interactive mapping exercise link. And if you scroll down more, we have a map here that you can zoom in and look at different areas of town. You can turn off layers and turn on layers if you wanted to see certain elements. So if you just want to see just the open space lands that I was talking about earlier. So this shows the open space lands. All the dark green are the ones that are protected in perpetuity. And then you can just turn them on if you want to see other elements of the town. Next is the survey. It's a quick 13-question survey. It's got some multiple choices and some important level questions. And there's a couple fill in the blanks at the bottom. Feel free to go take the survey when you have some time. And lastly, we have our interactive map activity, which we will be working on tonight. When you click on the link, you're gonna be welcomed to a welcome and how to use screen. If you're unable or unsure how to use it, we do have a quick video. If you click this blue link right here, and it will demonstrate how to use this activity, but I'm gonna do that as well right now. So some questions to think about tonight is how are current open spaces and recreation facilities functioning? And what additional facilities would you like to see in town? What important natural resources are in town and what areas should be protected that are not yet already? And are there any locations in town that could use some ADA improvements? These are just a couple brief questions to get you thinking, and you can put anything you want on this map. And if you need any other assistance, my email contact is right here, and feel free to email me your questions or things you would like to me to add to the map for you. So once you get through that, if you end up losing that screen, you need it back again, it's just this question mark at the top right. You can click that and that information will pop back up. If you want to share this, you can click this arrow in the box and it will bring up a little link and you can share that to anybody who is looking for it. On the left-hand side, there's the zoom in and zoom out button. The home button will just bring you back to Middleborough if you accidentally scrolled away. I do not have the location turned on, so this button won't work. If you're looking for a certain address, you can type it in here and it will bring you to it. And then lastly is the legend button. This has our categories that we will be adding to the map tonight. So we'll be adding ADA access needs, cultural or historical resource needs, maintenance or beautification need, new recreational amenity need, open space and resource conservation need, a pathway need, either a bicycle or pedestrian, recreational program needed, or other, if you have any other types of categories. And then at the bottom of this is just more information on other layers that are on the map. So we have some trip generators, we have some grocery store locations, library, post office, and then we also have the Middleborough open space by level of protection. And then there's also the Middleborough town-owned land and wetlands. So how you would use this interactive map is you click on the comment button, select what type of need, what type of comment you have. So I'll say a bicycle pathway need. You can zoom in or zoom out to find your location. I'm going to just put my point there, and if you accidentally place it in the wrong spot, you can either click cancel, or before you write anything, you can just click anywhere else on the map. And the only thing required is a comment. If you would like to add your name or email, that will all stay private, but we can get back to you if you have any questions or if you would like any answers or anything. So earlier today, we had a teacher at the Middleborough High School put 2 comments on the board. He had an ADA access need. So I'll just go through them with you to see what some people have already put. he put the comment for across from Thomas Memorial Park. He said, would be great to have canoe and kayak put in that was handicap accessible here for trips up the river. So if anybody else has any additional comments they would like to add to this, you can click this box right here and you can add an additional comment. Or if you thought this was a good comment, you can press the heart button. And the second comment he said was, would be nice to have a path near the river from here to the Henry Run. And same thing, all these comments and questions that will be in here, you can like it, or you can add an additional comment to it. So now I'm going to open it up to any of the participants. If they have anything they'd like to add, feel free to add your question or comment in the Q&A box. If you would like to just talk, you can press the raise hand and we can try to get you unmuted. And if you want to ask a question or ask or place a point on the map.
Everybody's being shy tonight. Sarah, can you go over the choices again? So, okay.
These are our choices. So we have ADA access needs. If you think that maybe there's some trails that could use some improvements. We have cultural historic resource needs, maintenance or beautification. So if it's any park or trails in town that you feel need some improvement. New recreational amenity needs. So if you think of any place in town that could use some, maybe a new playground or a new trail, open space and resource conservation needs. If you think of maybe another location in town that could be used to used for open space, pathway needs, either bicycle or pedestrian. If you think that there should be an additional sidewalk or bike lane added to get to another open space or recreational facility. And recreational programming needs. So such as the recreational programming that was at home. The Soul Homestead. We can add that to maybe other properties or locations in town. And then if there's something that you think of that doesn't fit in any of these categories, we can use the other button.
Okay, well, I have an idea for one.
Okay.
So for pedestrian pathway, there is conservation land that we already have. It's called the Town Forest. It's off of Chestnut Street.
Oh, and I forgot to say that you can't see the labels right now, but if you zoom in, the labels will pop up.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that right there. Yep. So there are some rough trails in there, but it hasn't been maintained over the years. So we're hoping to have, new trails created, or, help clear the old trails. Um, so that's just one idea to try to kickstart people's thinking.
Okay, so now that's on the map.
Hmm. I think we're actually developing some recreational fields off of Wood Street, near Route 28. So
On the town-owned land, you think?
yeah, it's town-owned land. I know the park department was applying for some community preservation funds. So, I mean, it's like in process right now, so I don't know, but I figured
We can add that.
this would help bolster it, right?
Mhm.
If like they needed anything in the future, because I think like they're only working with the first phase of the project. So if we have it in the plan, then obviously they could apply for additional funding.
Mhm.
So yeah, that would be, yeah, I think it's some kind of ball fields there. I wish Fran was here. He's our park department guy, or Judy Bigelow Acosta. She's also on the park commission.
She said she might join if her meeting gets over.
Yeah, that would be good. Let's see. Did anybody write in the Q&A? Nope.
Not yet. If anybody wants to, feel free to use the raise hand. We can unmute you.
I see one.
A question did just come up in the Q&A. What is the current status of the old DPW property?
Okay, well, I can kind of answer that. So we just got an environmental site assessment of the property. We're also working with, well, Danica knows this. We're working with SNAP, which is, what does that stand for, Danica? Southeastern.
Southeast New England program.
Right. And they're going to be doing some, yeah, what's the word? Drawings for us to plan out a park there, basically a public park. Might have a splash pad, would have a canoe and kayak launch, some plantings to help keep a buffer. We're looking at, resiliency, help restore some of that river buffer, all kinds of good stuff. So yeah, we haven't gotten to the demolition part of the buildings yet, because we just got that environmental site assessment. I know that the DPW is still trying to take things off site that they had stored there. So, but it's definitely looking positive. A lot of people answered a survey that was out a couple months ago, what their feelings were for the use of the property. And, overwhelmingly people wanted to see it become a park, and access to the river. So hopefully that answers your question.
Should we add that to the map as well as an additional point to all that? All right, you might have to direct me a little bit. Oop, you're on mute, Patricia.
sorry, over near the Nemasket, where actually this other ADA symbol is.
This one? Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
So we could also do new recreation. Yep. All right. Look at that. We're getting a list now.
Yep.
If I could propose a point that was brought up by a resident in another context, in the context of the Assawamsett Ponds Complex Management Team. There was some discussion about using Blueberry Island a lot more, and kind of like seeing if it would be possible to rehabilitate and just increase its general friendliness to and ease of access to use. So I guess that might be a maintenance or beautification need. Yeah, down and then right in Paksha Pond. Yeah, that one.
Do you know, Ben, if people have access to that?
I can't recall off the top of my head. I believe it's owned by Wildlands.
Yeah, the Wildlands Trust, right?
The person who brought it up didn't mention if it's currently publicly used. It was they mentioned it wasn't developed, like there was a restriction or something in terms of development, but not. It seems like some people do use it, whether or not they're supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I can't recall if it's fully open.
Yeah, I know there's some areas, protected land around the complex that people can use, like, at Long Point Road, people can go fishing there. I mean, yeah, Long Point Road. But then there's some areas that people aren't allowed. And then there's other areas where they can horseback ride. So it kind of, it depends. It depends on the parcel.
Yeah, I would imagine, Trish, that the Wildlands Trust has a list of uses allowable at Blueberry Island.
Right, and I'm not familiar with them off the top of my head.
Right, maybe Scott McFadden might be able to help us out with that.
I'm sure he could.
Throw that in the open space plan.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll write that down. We'll kind of find out about that.
Yeah. Because I think there's some habitat issues out there as well. So it's not the kind of thing you'd want, random tromping.
Right.
Does anybody here have a favorite park in town that they like to visit, or walking path or trail?
Well, Pratt Farm's pretty popular. And then I know, the Oliver Estate that the town purchased in 2015, we do have trails there, but, we'd like to create some new trails. I don't know if you want to. Because I have had people throughout the pandemic, they knew that it was public property, but a couple of people have called the office, asking about creating new trails or doing trail maintenance. So it's not just coming from me. And that's why we got the forestry management plan done recently, because I wanted to have some kind of, the town wanted to have some basis for the property, where people aren't just kind of randomly going out there creating trails, so. Do the attendees have any other, any input? This is the time to get your wish list in.
Feel free to use the raise hand button and we can unmute you, or if you want to write your question in the question and answer box.
If you want like an amphitheater somewhere on town property, let us know. If you want more programming at the library, let us know. Even like we're looking at the reuse of the Pierce, sometimes people say Purse building, across from the library. It was the old police station. I don't know what people want to do with that.
Does anybody have any ideas who are here?
Trish, has anybody gotten in touch with you about increasing canoe and kayak access up and down the river to link your trails, all your proposed greenways with the river and make it kind of a greenway, blueway combined?
Yes, over the years, obviously, I've had people, contacting the office. More recently, probably, late summer, early fall. No one's really calling me about the river right now in January. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about the river access we got a design for off of Auburn Street, which is off of River Street. So, and that actually had ADA, it's designed for ADA compliance.
Yes, it is. Might be a
So,
great time to chase some funding for it. And
so maybe we
kind of
should
tie-
put that on the map.
We have one question from Leanne, or one comment. There's
Oh,
property
yes.
off of Plymouth Street. Do you know which way that is towards 18?
well, maybe we'll do the canoe thing first.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, and then we'll go over to Plymouth Street. Yeah, I know exactly what property she's talking about.
Okay, so where should I put a point for the canoe?
Oh, so you want to go up to, it's the Bridgewater town line. So up off of River Street. Yeah, it's near the Taunton River Wildlife Management Area.
Okay,
So over, yep. Yep, and then scroll down. No, not that one. There's another one. Of course, there's a couple that are named that.
up here, right? Yeah.
Yep, up in there. So it's over there. There's that pink. Yep, that's the town property.
Okay,
So I mean, Auburn Street is considered a town road. It's abandoned because there was a bridge connecting to Bridgewater, but it was a wooden bridge and it burned and it wasn't replaced. And on the other side, on the Bridgewater side, there's Wildlands Trust has protected property and Fish and Game have protected property. So yeah, so that would be, I guess, you could put ADA access, and I know you got to click one at a time.
yeah.
So this would be another canoe and kayak put in access.
Yeah, and where that plan is already done, you got a grant to do that plan. So that's kind of in the can. It would be nice to see if we can get some funding for it.
Actually get it constructed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
All right, so then we can go over to that 148 Plymouth Street. Let's see, yeah, it's gonna be the other side of Route 18. So,
type it in.
oh yeah, good, you can, that's right. You can go
Here.
right to it. Oh, good, yep. So that's on the Taunton River. It's a farm property that has been abandoned. Yeah, so that would be open space. So open space opportunity, land protection opportunity, however you want to term it. All right, looks like there's another. Okay,
Let me zoom back out.
all right, awesome.
Does anybody have anything maybe with Rocky Gutter? In this area or the southern area of Middleborough?
Yeah, that's a fish and game property. Mostly used for hunting. But yeah, I mean, it would be great to have some programming there, or I mean, there's a lot of well-worn trails. And again, like it's, you know, it's maintained by Fish and Game. There's an access off of Rocky Gutter Street, and then there's an access off of Pine Street, and there's an access off of France Street that I know of. It's like 3,000 acres of land. So we're pretty lucky to have that all protected.
Mhm.
Another question came in from Leanne. What about the town property at the end of Gibbs Road?
Oh yeah. That's a can of worms, but that also should be access to Tispequin Pond. Some public access to Tispequin Pond. The problem with that I think, you know, eventually could be overcome is that Gibbs Road is a private road. And of course there are people that like it to stay private and they don't want people in and out, you know, but the town does have property at the end of it. It would have limited parking, but it would be a public spot to put in, you know, a boat or canoe or kayak. There's a public boat launch at the other end of the pond off of Eldon Way, and that's a state boat ramp. But you know, it would be nice to have another one.
All right, I'll add a new recreational amenity. Maybe a town boat ramp or an additional.
Yeah, it would be like a town boat ramp in addition to the state one that's at the other end of the pond. I mean, it would, you know, there's not a lot of space for parking. So that's a challenge because there's a lot of wetlands on that property. It's a large piece, but it's limited. And so I can see like people wouldn't want cars, you know, parked all along Gibbs Road. It's a narrow road. And, you know, you wouldn't want that just in case fire or police needed to get down there. So it's potential, but requires some thought.
Yep.
Yeah, we had some Board of Selectmen that were interested in, you know, making that something for the public since it is town property. And then the Western Forest abuts it. But the only time you can really walk in some of there is when it's this time of the year and if it's frozen. Some of it's I mean, some of it's upland, but yeah, there's like an entrance on Tispiquin Street and you can only walk so far. And then, you know, it's like Atlantic White Cedar Swamp. It's actually beautiful in there. But to get to the Purchase Street side, it has to be frozen. Or put in a boardwalk, maybe a pedestrian way.
There you
Haha.
go. That could be a new, you could add that.
Yeah.
Down this end. Oh, Leanne wrote in the chat that that would be a great Eagle Scout project.
Yes. That would be a major Eagle Scout project. There are trails on the Purchase Street side that an Eagle Scout did mark, and they made a kiosk and a map and everything. But like I said, in between, you know, in the middle of all of this is the swamp and the wetlands. And I don't know how long that boardwalk would have to be. I mean, it maybe could be phased. It could be one Eagle Scout does so many feet, another one does.
Generational projects.
Yeah.
Here's the map without the open space overlay. So the blue is all the
The
wetlands.
wetlands. Yeah. You know, and then we could, you know, you could think about, we have a couple camps there. We have Camp Umicus and we have Camp Avoda. And, you know, they're under Chapter 61B for recreation. So they're not permanently protected. You know, so if one of those came up for sale, I think the town would want to, you know, protect them.
Is this one and this one? Or the
Yeah,
box?
so yep, so Camp Avoda, and then, yeah, Camp Umicus. I don't know why I was thinking they were across from each other, but yeah, they're like kind of next to each other. And then Holton Estates, that used to be a campground, and that's why it's showing as recreation still, but now it's a subdivision.
I can put a point here for open space and conservation.
Yeah, just put it in that general vicinity. Yeah, Holton Estates, it's too bad because it kind of has a beach there, and that it could have become like a town beach.
Hmm.
But
All right, we'll zoom back out. Starting to get some. Hopefully people will interact with it.
well, yeah, I think like if people go on and they see that there's all this stuff, they'll be curious, like, oh, where's that? And then they'll start thinking, they'll get their juices flowing, right?
Yes.
Or like, I'm hoping, you know, people from different parts of town interact with this because they know they're part of town
Mhm.
the best. And that's what we want. So this is being recorded and then people can watch it
Yep.
later.
Yep.
Good.
This is recording, and I'm gonna send it to Cable Access,
Yep,
and we're gonna post it to our website.
great. And then the link to all of this, can that be shared on Facebook?
Yep.
Or other, okay.
Yeah, we can share the project webpage, which has a link to the survey and to
Okay.
this mapping exercise. And we can also just share either the survey or the mapping exercise. And then here's the map where you can turn it on, off layers and on layers. So on this map, we have, so far, SRPEDD has only done a couple of the trails for
Oh,
the
cool.
mapping project. So they've done, they went in and did some of the Weston Forest trails off of Purchase Street,
Great.
and then some of the Rocky Gutter ones. So they show here. And then we have our Complete Streets Prioritization Plan projects to show people what is on a Complete Streets plan.
Great.
And if it's a bike and ped recommendation, just a pedestrian recommendation, or a bicycle recommendation, and where those locations are. And then we have also all the open space by level of protection.
This is great. I was also thinking, a little old-fashioned, but we could also put this in the Brockton Enterprise and the Middleborough Gazette. Now, the Middleborough Gazette is only digital now. But I just figured, why not? There are still people out there looking at the newspapers.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay,
We're gonna leave these exercises open for 3 weeks, because I'm gonna bring it down to you, paper versions, on Monday or Tuesday. Just
Okay.
wanna make sure they're printed out and they look fine. And
great.
I'm gonna bring the stickers, and we'll leave them for 3 weeks, and then that way we have them ready for our next stakeholder meeting.
Great.
I have a question, Trisha. Something that's come up for the Asquamset Ponds project that Ben mentioned before. I was looking at like recreation across the watershed, and something that was proposed was a like river walk, I think it was called, in downtown Middleborough along the
Yes.
Nemasket River.
Yes.
I was curious, like, what exists there currently, and what ideas are there for
So there,
that?
yeah, so there are some preliminary, I guess you would say plans, proposal for what, sections of the river, outside in the river. And there was a meeting in August about it, kind of like a working group, getting like a working group together to get some input, because they actually ended up submitting a step 1 application to the Community Preservation Committee. And I want to say, I just talked to, it's Arthur Battistini. He's on the Board of Selectmen. He's kind of spearheading it with another resident, Louise Derry Wells. And I think they had also submitted a step 2 application to community, and it's just for a feasibility study to figure out what would need to be done, like if we need to, get easements from people. I think on one side of the river, I want to say it's the western side of the river, the town actually owns a lot of property in the center of town. We do have kind of, we're looking at near the DPW, the old DPW building. That is kind of, they were thinking about, okay, people would walk up the street and then they'd go down Jackson Street, Lincoln Street to Jackson Street to the Park and Rec land. But maybe there's another way to have a little pedestrian bridge to get over there. Only because like the gas and electric company, the light plant's over there on that side, and they don't want people walking around there. So that's a little bit of a challenge, but most of it is kind of laid out from, I want to say, from not Wareham Street. I think it's from Route 28, where the Field of Dreams is, all the way eventually to Murdoch Street, where the Taunton River is. where you're almost at the Taunton River. Um,
This south?
yeah, so Route 28, it would start, yeah, it would start over near like where the Berkland School is. That's where the Field of Dreams is. And it would be on that side, so the western side of the river. And then link up and eventually all the way to Murdoch Street, which is kind of a long way. And, you know, hope to make it not just a pedestrian trail, but also maybe a bikeway. And then it, you know, would get people into the downtown more. And, you know, we have historical points along there too. We have like, you know, the Robbins Museum off of Jackson Street. We have, there's some other historical buildings there. Yeah. So, but it's preliminary. Trying to think what else.
That would be a great heritage landscape trail, Trish,
Yeah,
because there are so many cultural and heritage assets located along that part of the river and even going through the downtown.
is that just a designation or is that a funding source?
Maybe able to get some funding for that.
So would
I'd
you
be
call it a heritage corridor?
Yeah. Heritage landscape,
Landscape, right?
a heritage landscape corridor.
I think we did that for Thompson Street. Because it's an agricultural
Mhm.
corridor. Yeah, I thought it was just a designation and they got signs.
Well, maybe they'll get some funding because,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, like maybe there's Mass Cultural Council funding or Mass, yeah.
yeah, even the Stewardship Council, because culture, history, and archaeology, we combined as one of our outstanding resource values when the
Right.
river was designated. I can bring up an old timer to you too, as long as you're thinking about blasts from the past and old time things. I mean, that's kind of in my wheelhouse. I was thinking about the Rocky Gutter Wildlife Sanctuary. You brought it up before.
Yeah.
Would that be a good intermunicipal connection to Carver? Because I know they're in the midst of doing their open space plan right now too. So it might be a really nice intermunicipal project to create some trail improvements, you know, work with the state, create some trail improvements and do an intermunicipal connection.
Do some connections. Yeah, that's a good idea. So, Sarah, I don't know if you want to go back down to Rocky Gutter.
Yep. Okay.
I just remembered because we had brought this up before when you and I were doing the 2015 version.
Yeah.
It came up as a public measure.
All right, where do you think whereabouts?
So would it be, I mean, the Wee Wee Antic is there. So what do they have for open space in Carver that's near this?
Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can add Carver's open space.
And if we can't get it tonight, we can certainly look at it because it's something we're working with the town, you know, right now on.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think we should be looking at things more regionally.
There you go.
Okay, so I've added Carver's open space.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can look at what their priorities are as well.
Mhm.
And see where we can make some connections, even if it's along roads to get to certain parcels.
Yeah. Yeah, because France Street goes into Carver.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of cranberry bogs all over that area. Yeah, maybe we can make some linkage to this Atwood Reservoir.
Okay, I'll add it about here. If anybody has any other questions or comments, please feel free to raise your hand or add it in the question and answer box.
Yeah, it looks like we had somebody new join.
I was just gonna say the same thing, yeah. You
Yeah.
might want to give like a quick and dirty overview of what we're doing.
Okay, for those of you who just joined, we are using an interactive online mapping activity to add any of your comments based on locations to our Middleborough open space map. We have categories such as ADA access needs, cultural and historical resource needs, maintenance and beautification, a new recreational amenity, open space and conservation needs, if you think there should be any bicycle or pedestrian pathways that are needed in town, recreational programming, and then if you have an idea or a category comment that you don't think fit into any one of these particular ones, we can do an other and add it to the map. So feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions or comments, or even if you just want to see what we've already placed on the map. The links to our project website and our open space survey are in the chat as well as this mapping exercise.
Thanks, Ben. Oh. I
You
think
see the
she means,
question.
yeah, I think she means the DPW site.
Okay.
Yep, that's the hot topic. She said exactly. Okay. Yeah, I'll just brief you on that. So we were talking about where that's at in this moment in time. There was an environmental site assessment conducted, nothing major, nothing, horrible there. And that we have a group that is going to be doing some renderings for us of near the stream to look at stream buffers so we can create some climate change resiliency and the general layout of what we want the park to be there. But it would be a public park. I think everybody's on board with that. Board of Selectmen, are in full support. There was a survey that went out a few months ago that people responded to, and overwhelmingly people, would like to see it as a park and maybe have a splash pad there that would look natural, would have natural features, and, plantings and areas to picnic, maybe have, certain events there, and would be accessible, to people from the downtown. We also talked about a river walk perhaps being on the other side of the river from this, that would go from Route 28, from the Field of Dreams, and would come all the way through town, and eventually end up on Murdoch Street. So, that's in preliminary stages of discussion and funding. There's going to be, the Community Preservation Committee is going to be hopefully funding a feasibility study of that river walk. But as far as this mapping exercise, we looked at, there was someone from the public earlier before this meeting had commented that there should be some accessibility to the river that's ADA makes it ADA accessible for people with disabilities. And then of course, create this area as new recreation facility under the park department. So I
And
hope that answers your question.
with this tool, if you agree with any of these or like these comments that are on this location or any location on the map, you can click the heart button to like it. This will add a 1 next to here, and then we can see how many people like each of these comments. Or if you have an additional idea, so far we wrote new park at the old DPW site. If say you wanted to add like a playground, or say there wasn't going to be a splash pad, you could click the comment and say, hey, I think this would be a good location for a new playground or a splash pad. And then that would go be attached to this comment. So when we review in 3 weeks, when we close this project up, we can see how many people like each of these elements, and we can know where to prioritize them in our plan. She asked another question. The river walk would start on the other side of the river by the Heron Run.
Yeah, so we were talking about how the herring run there at Wareham Street is a little problematic for the Riverwalk. We were thinking that because the light plant is over there too, the gas electric company doesn't want people walking around there. So we'd either have to just go around. Oh yes, true, yeah, exactly. They have to go around up to Lincoln Street, to Jackson Street, and then to the park department land, come back down to the river. Or maybe we could do some kind of pedestrian bridge at the herring run off Wareham Street to get to the other side, avoiding, I don't know how we do that, but avoiding the gas electric company property. So to be determined in that location.
We have added the link to this also to the chat, so feel free to share it with people, send it out, and then you can always review these and add more comments to the map additional. So a couple other things that we've gone over and added to the map tonight would be maybe adding a boardwalk to the Western Forest so people can use it all year long. The 2 camps down here by Tisquin Pond are Chapter 61B properties. So if they ever become available, maybe the town should look into acquiring them for open space and recreation. off of Wood Street, the town is looking at maybe adding new ball fields. At Oliver Estates, maybe adding some new trails for people to walk through. And then up north off of Plymouth Street, there's an old farm. So that could be an open space opportunity. So these are some of the comments we've gotten so far.
I was just thinking, should we add Peconi Farm specifically as an open space? Even though, like, we're working on it right now, but it's not going to be completed until like September. Well, hopefully by September, the purchase will happen.
We can add it. The plan will be done before then, so
Yeah,
maybe adding it won't hurt. You will have to direct me to that one.
okay. So the Oliver Estate,
Okay.
where we were looking at trails improvement, it's right next to that. So it's this large parcel abutting it along the river.
Okay.
Yeah, to the north.
Go to the north.
Right.
This one?
That's Oliver.
Okay.
So to the north. So if you put the arrow up, nope. Yep. That
Over
big,
here. Okay.
this whole thing. Yep. That whole thing is Peconi Farm. So it'd be, yeah, open space.
All right. How do you spell that one?
Okay. It's Picone. And farm.
Okay. I just didn't want to spell it wrong.
Open space and agricultural opportunity.
All right. Add to the map.
I also just want to bring attention to some chat activity, since I don't know if everyone can see the chat. Someone asked how to get more involved in this, if there's a mailing list to sign up. So Ben shared the project website again in the chat, srped.org/Middleborough-OSRP. And at the bottom of that page, there is a mailing list sign up. And then Bruce Chase has his hand raised. So you can unmute him if there's something that you would like to say.
I will allow to talk. There we go. Bruce, you can unmute yourself.
I think it's about the Peconi Farms.
I just want to know, I believe the Peconi Farm is on the other side of 44. Up when you pass the KOA on that road. It's on
Yeah,
both
it's-
sides up there. It's not on the south side of 44. It's more on the north.
Right. So it's north of the Oliver Estate. And it is on the other side of Plymouth Street. But we're only looking at the side that abuts the Oliver Estate.
Oh, so I didn't know the Oliver Estate went to the north side of 44 as well?
Yes. Well, so there's Oliver Mill, which is on the south side of
Right.
44. Yep. And then the Oliver Estate where the historic house is. And there's like 46 acres of conservation land with that.
Oh, I didn't know that was part of the Oliver Estate.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you for
welcome.
clarifying that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I thought that was all, so then it abuts the Peconi Farm.
Yes. So we can connect trails once we get the Peconi Farm. We
Well,
can,
thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
If anybody else has any other comments or questions, feel free to raise your hand and we can unmute you. And you can also ask anything or add anything to the map. We are going to stay on till around 9:30. That's the time we advertised, and I think a few people might join us later after the Community Preservation Committee meeting.
Yeah, that would be great, because I'm sure they have some good input.
The presentation that I gave at the beginning of tonight's meeting, I will post it on our website so people can review it there. As well as we will have this meeting recording on there, and we'll post it to Middleborough Cable Access Channel.
Oh, I have another open space opportunity.
All right.
And the water department's interested in it as well. It's up near Bridgewater. It's off of Plymouth Street, near the on the Taunton River. We actually have a town well site that's being developed there right now. Yep, so it's up this weird shape that looks like a square and a circle together. Yep, that's the well site.
Okay.
There are fields around that. That's the Bertarelli farm property. And that's definitely something the town is going to want to look into later, to protect the well site and, just open space in general along the river.
We have a nice little list now going.
I guess I just have a general question. Are there any kind of development hotspots in town where which will intersect with wetlands or areas that might be particularly important for stormwater retention? If we see like a big increase in impervious surface, and that maybe that could be paired nicely with green infrastructure or something to start controlling that runoff and building off of pre-existing open space or wetlands.
Yeah, I know Bill and I have talked about not necessarily development, but that, there could be improvements along the Nemasket River where the railroad bridge is off of Route 105. So that could be like an ecological restoration area.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it's there. Yeah, there's the railroad bridge. Yeah, it's gonna be, near Lakeville.
Yeah, that's for the Mascot and APC.
Yeah, and there definitely could be some more like stormwater improvements for the downtown. And, off of Route 28, we have done some stormwater upgrades in the downtown near the housing authority and near the old Winthrop Adkins facility off of Route 105. And I think off of Mayflower Ave too. There was some detention basins added to help the runoff that goes to the river eventually. But yeah, there's always more that we could do. It'd be great to add some more like green space and tree, street trees.
Yeah.
like in the downtown, you know, to help with the heat island effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just thinking that. Yeah. And trees also have like a whole host of other mental health benefits too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we just did, I don't know if it's because of complete streets, but the whole intersection off of like Center Street up into they call it John Glass Square now. It was Everett Square. There were some bump outs that were created to make it safer to go through that intersection. And I believe they've created some green space with that too. That was a DPW project.
The town was just awarded, I believe it was $400,000 through Complete Streets to upgrade their sidewalks along North Main Street.
Yes, I did hear about that. Yep. And then of course, like we just had success with adding a sidewalk connection from the downtown to Pratt Farm. So that was a grant also.
Yep, I think that was the shared streets grant.
Yeah, that was shared streets. Yeah, you're right.
I'm just gonna switch this to the comment. Okay, so now it shows all the comments instead of the category. So people can just quickly look through all the comments and then they can click on it and see what kind of category topic is. Does anybody have any ideas for along the water? Maybe for the Morgan property?
Yeah, the Morgan property, we do need to do some maintenance there on the trails. There have been some, trees have fallen due to storms in the last couple of years. We did have a commissioner that was going out there and he was helping to maintain, there's a field off of Marion Road and do some trail work, but he left us from the commission maybe like almost 3 years ago. So and because of COVID and just, we had school groups that were helping out there before. It needs some help, it needs some attention. So we have a stewardship group that works a lot at Pratt Farm, doing trail maintenance and mowing and just general cleanup. But, if anybody's interested in taking on other conservation properties we have, since this is going to be aired, I just want to put it out there. We would love to hear from anybody wanting to volunteer at our properties. Not just at Pratt Farm, but we do have all these other properties. They can contact the Conservation Department and they can give us a call. Our number is 508-946-2406. Or they can email us via the town's website and it'll get to us. Yeah, because we have, the JMAR property too, which is off of Plymouth Street. down the street from Oliver Mill Park and the Mascot Hill Cemetery, that property does need some maintenance. It was basically a field, a mowed field, and over the last year, it hasn't been mowed. So it would be great to kind of open up the field a little bit and create some mowed trails again. Hmm.
For the person who wrote that they were new to town, which part of town did you move to? Are you interested in any opportunities up in that area on learning more about open space and recreation? Some things that we talked about in our working group meetings were maybe adding some horse trails throughout the town. A couple of people on our working group meeting like to ride horses, and they want to know where or if there's a ability to add more trails in town so that the horses don't have to always go on the road with the cars. A couple other things we've talked about is maybe having a website or an app so people can learn more about different properties, different trail opportunities in town, and to find locations where they can go and enjoy the open space and recreation. And then we just talked about some other properties, such as older farms that maybe the town can acquire in the future to be able to provide some more open space and keep that open for the town.
Yeah, and I think the horse trail idea is a good one, and trying to find linkages from property to property. I know that the planning department years ago, they, in looking at subdivisions that were coming before them, did do some trail, like there were some existing trails on the property. They did some trail protection, like at Gateway Estates off of Precinct Street. I think Meadowbrook, which is off of Thompson Street. There's some other ones. Tarragon Estates has some existing trails on conservation land that's around the subdivision. So, and I know a lot of the bog owners, cranberry bog owners, they do allow people to use their property, but you definitely want to contact them just to make sure, because especially during the growing season, they do still use, some pesticides and integrated pest management, and you want to make sure it's safe to walk around them. And I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, I was just thinking of something else besides the horse trails, and it left my mind.
That actually might be a great thing to put in an online app or an online brochure, Trish, about trails, trail use, and pet and pedestrian friendly trails. And that way your cranberry bog owners could actually get in touch with you well ahead of time, and they could be listed as that type of a trail, safe for public access. And then
Right.
say when it's not safe, but almost like time of year restrictions for a fishery.
Yep.
Yeah, and you jogged my memory a little bit too when you started saying, these things have been coming up, in years past. I think the last go round, we also talked about consistent signage at town-owned properties, so that, we were just throwing things out there like, the green signs that say town of Middleborough, that's usually conservation property, parks property, please feel free to go in, instead of driving by it, because we have different signs for everything.
Right.
And I think one of the other things we discussed too, and it might have even come up in a discussion with Scott McFadden and Kitty Doherty from Bridgewater, of all things, about stewardship plans for specific areas that need maintenance.
Right.
It's because, I think Kitty was telling us it was a great way to organize volunteers in Bridgewater to have stewardship plans for that park and recreation system. It doesn't have to be war and peace, but
Right.
we'd like to do these things, these trail maintenance here, clearing a blow down here, stuff like that. And it gives people things to dig into when they say, I'd like to help, what can I do?
Yeah. Yeah, we do have a couple management plans.
Yeah.
Which would be, on par with that. Pratt Farm has one that's, from when they bought the property. I think they bought the property in 1986, and the plan came together, I want to say, at least a year or so after that. And then the Morgan property has a management plan. And these plans also have kind of a wish list of what they wanted the properties to be going forward. So those are helpful, especially when we have Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts ask for projects.
Yep.
We can go right to that management plan and say, hey, we needed a boardwalk over here, we need a sign over here, or we need whatever. I know one scout did removal of bittersweet at Pratt Farm, and that was just a project.
You should get 2 merit badges for that one. If you can do autumn olive, then you should get 5 merit badges.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. He ended up, I think he was doing it, they call it the Hornaday Award, and it's named after, a scout from the past. And so it's like you do your Eagle Scout, but then you do, I don't know, it's like 4 or 5 other projects.
Yeah, you can get additional badges.
You're right. Yeah. So not many people go for that. They do the Eagle and they're done. So yeah, other properties we have, we definitely need to be putting together management plans for, and just putting it out there to the public. If anyone, if you're from a certain neighborhood where you see that there's conservation land and you'd like to spearhead that with our department, with conservation, we'd be happy to talk to people about that. Because certainly we can't, our little department can't do everything. The town truly does run on good citizens that want to volunteer and help.
I just got an email from Maureen. She emailed like 20 minutes ago saying she having a hard time getting into the meeting. So I tried sending her a new link. Maybe she'll be able to join us.
Mm. Oh, Laureen. Yeah. Yeah, she's on the Historical Commission and Community Preservation. yeah, it'd be great if she could get in because she has a lot of good ideas and experience. I know the last open space plan survey, there were a lot of people that expressed an interest in having a dog park. And I just wanted to put it out there that I think, you know, the animal control and the health department are a little concerned about having that on town property, only because, you know, how do you regulate, make sure that, you know, certain dogs that are there, or all the dogs, have their shots and, you know, their vaccinations and medicines and whatever. That becomes a liability for the town. So in a perfect world, it's a great idea. But there are some challenges and things that would need to be put together to make sure that it was safe. Yeah, and then again, like, there were people that wanted a town beach. And, you know, so if we have an opportunity to purchase property around Tispecon Pond that could have a beach, obviously that would be something to satisfy people's comments from the past. And just because of the, you know, pandemic and everything, there have been a lot of people asking for more trails, more places to walk. And I think, you know, putting out there to the public more, you know, letting them know where all these places are, like, you know, having brochures, having an app for the phone so people could see, you know, where these properties are and how accessible they are, and if there's parking. And, you know, obviously we don't have bathroom facilities at all our town properties. But yeah, I think my dream is to have brochures for every property, and information that you could download, a map you could print out if you wanted to, or just have on your phone. We did have an intern from Bridgewater State. I think he was on, oh, he's still here. He's here. He helped us create, it was a story map with GIS, Geographic Information Systems, for the Pratt Farm. And that map is interactive, and you can print it out at home if you wanted to print it out. So that is something I'd like to have, you know, for all of our properties that have trails. We do have properties that are like along Fall Brook that you really would never be able to walk. They're very wet. But at least for our properties that have trails, that would be nice.
Is that link to that Pratt Farm story map available that I can click on?
It is on the conservation section of the town's website. And yeah. And then if you, let's see, yep, I think that should be it. So yeah, so it talks a little bit about the history when it was a farm. It was really like a 4-season farm. they had, you know, something going on every time of the year. And, you know, when it was purchased by the town, it was through a grant. It was going to become a golf course or a subdivision, a housing development. And of course, you know, we have 2 town wells across from the Pratt Farm. So they wanted to protect it, you know, not only for open space, but also for water protection purposes. And then there's other parcels around Pratt Farm that aren't necessarily part of the farm, but they're under the water department. And those were acquired with water protection funds from the state to, again, protect the town wells off of East Main Street. So yeah, it's just really nice job. So thank you, Joe. I know he's on here.
Sarah, is there a way to capture like town-wide ideas on here, like to somehow capture the need or the desire / need for like brochures and online information about all properties? Because then at least if it's on that list, like other people from the community who are looking at it can vote for it, so you can see if it's like how popular of an idea it is.
Yeah, we can just throw it on here. So I'll, let's see, recreational programming. If you want to just, if you have a townwide comment or need, maybe just throw it on close to the border. And then when you write in your comment, write townwide. And then we can know if it's like a townwide or if it's a location specific comment. Let's say brochures. All right, we have about 13 minutes left. So if anybody has any last questions or comments they want to ask us while we're live, feel free to ask. And if not, you can go to our project page and we have all of our links to our survey and our interactive map, which we'll be keeping open for another 3 weeks. We will make a post on the Facebook page so that people will know when we're going to close them. So that if they have any final comments or would like to take the survey before it closes, we'll give people notice. And you
How long do they have to answer the survey?
we'll start with 3 weeks, and then if we need to extend that, we will. We'll keep the map open for 3 weeks, and then we'll take our comments back to start working on the action items of the plan. And the presentation from earlier will be posted online if you want to print it out and review it at another date. And feel free to email myself or Tricia if you have any questions or comments about this process. We are hoping to have our plan finalized by late March, early April. And I believe we're going to have another public meeting to go over the final plan.
So there's 3 public meetings, correct?
I think it was 2 or 3.
2, yeah. I was thinking one was in February.
We're having our working group meeting in February.
Right, okay.
Ooh. Lorraine was able to join us. Hi,
Oh,
Lorraine.
great.
So I'll just go over a couple of things real quick and raise your hand if you have any questions or comments, and we can allow you to talk. So at the beginning of this workshop, we had a brief presentation to go over the open space and rec plan. And we had some demographic and climate data in there. We will be posting that to the website tomorrow, so you can download it and review it. And right now, we are going over our interactive mapping exercise. And we were asking people to give us some comments or locations on the map where they want to see new ADA access, cultural or historic resources, maintenance or beautification needs at any of the parks or open space in town. If you have an idea for a new recreational amenity, or ideas for where there could be new open spaces and conservation lands. If you think of any pathway needs for bicycles or peds, either it being new or one being updated. And then if you think of any recreational programming needing, like the Soul Homestead has some recreational programs opportunities there. So you can either raise your hand and we can allow you to talk, or if you just want to write in the Q&A and we can take your comments and add them to the map.
Oh,
Comment came in the Q&A. Do you see it?
Yep. Has the town ever considered any official ATV or off-road parks? I know that there have been some organizations in the western part of the state that have worked in partnership with local conservation groups to control illegal ATV and off-road use. I'm not sure if this is necessarily a problem in Middleborough, but off-road ATV park could be a potential revenue source if it's done properly.
so I guess I could answer that a little bit. So there is currently not an ATV park, but there is a dirt bike park. So it's privately owned near Carver. I want to say it's down off of Plymouth Street.
Yeah, I believe it's off of Plymouth.
And, of course, that was pretty rural back then, back when they started. And now, occasionally there'll be people complaining about it, houses that have been built since it was there. There is a problem with ATV usage on town property that does not allow it. We have had problems at Pratt Farm where people come in from other properties or power lines, and it's very hard to control it. The police, they do have an ATV, they have ATVs that they can use, but it's very difficult for them to catch these people. And the environmental police, they are stretched very thin. They don't have a huge staff, and they cover they cover a large area in Massachusetts, in southeastern Mass, pretty much. It's not like you have an environmental police officer for each town. So again, it's difficult for them to catch people unless they know specifically, like, do they do it mostly on the weekends, or, on Tuesdays, or, whatever. It's hard for them to get out there and catch them. And, if the town was to have its own ATV park, again, there's like liability concerns. So I don't know, how that would work legally. So those are my comments.
All right, we have a couple minutes left. Does anybody have any last minute comments? You can raise your hand and we can allow you to talk. All right, I don't want to keep everybody here longer than 9:30. So I just want to thank you all for joining us tonight. And these activities will be on our Middleborough Open Space and Recreational Plan website. So feel free to go on them and participate over the next 3 weeks. And I want to remind you, we will have a large format map at the town hall annex, and the public library starting early next week. We will be posting them there if you want to interact with the in-person map versus the online map. And we can also have some printed forms of the survey there as well. So if you want to take the survey in person and not online, we can leave some there for you to take as well.
All right. I just wanted to thank everybody who participated tonight, who jumped on from the community. And I especially want to thank everyone at SRPEDD that joined us tonight. Sarah, Danica, Bill, and Ben, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, everybody, and I hope you have a good night.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.